Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Yesterday we have discussed about the deficiency symptoms of essential elements. Now today we will take up the mechanism of absorption of mineral elements or nutrients by the plants. First we will see what is absorption. The process of intake of nutrients from the soil by the roots is called absorption, and is simply the process of intake of nutrients from the soil by the roots of a plant is called absorption. Mineral elements present in the soil are never absorbed as a whole. The mineral elements present in the soil are never absorbed as a whole, but rather as positively charged ions, that is cations, or negatively charged ions, that is anions. The mineral elements which are present in the soil, they are not absorbed as such as a whole, but rather as positively charged or negatively charged ions, that is cations or anions. Unlike water absorption, the uptake of mineral ions takes place by the superficial cells of the meristematic zone and zone of cell elongation. And we can say, unlike water absorption, and it is not like water absorption, but it is somewhat different from the water absorption. Here the uptake of the minerals takes place by the superficial cells of the meristematic zone and zone of cell elongation. But water absorption takes place through root hairs. It takes place through root hairs, but this mineral uptake, that is absorption minerals, takes place by the superficial cells of the meristematic zone and zone of cell elongation. Now we will see mechanism of absorption. This is absorption. Mechanism of absorption of mineral elements are nutrients. How these mineral elements are absorbed by the plants, how they are uptaken by the plant. Much of the studies have been on the mechanism of absorption of what elements by the plants has been carried out in isolated cells, tissues and organs. And my studies have been carried out to know about the mechanism of absorption of elements in isolated cells, tissues or organs. And these studies reveal that process of absorption takes place through two phases, or takes place by two methods, or takes place by two ways. And these studies which have been carried out to study the mechanism of absorption of water, uptake of these minerals by the plants, it shows that it takes place in two phases, or some write down by two ways, by two methods, that is to passive absorption and active absorption. Now the first phase, that is passive absorption. In the first phase, or in this type, the initial rapid uptake of mineral ions into the free space or outer space of the cells takes place through apoplast, that is non-living continuum. Non-living continuum without participation of any metabolic energy. We can say in the first phase or in this type of this absorption, the mineral uptake takes place through non-living continuum. They are absorbed, the minerals are absorbed into the free space, that is through the cell wall and intercellular spaces. Cell wall and intercellular spaces, these are non-living parts. Non-living parts of a cell which we call as apoplast or non-living continuum. This does not involve any expenditure of metabolic energy. This type of absorption which does not involve any metabolic energy, any expenditure of metabolic energy, but simply takes place by diffusion, by facilitated diffusion, by ion exchange, by Donan equilibrium, or by mass flow. This we call as passive absorption. And here no metabolic energy is needed. Without the participation, it is known as passive absorption. This passive absorption, as I have already told you, Various theories have been given to explain this passive absorption by different these physiologists which are working on this absorption of minerals. Some say that it takes place by diffusion, simple by diffusion. Some say that it takes place by facilitated diffusion. Some say that it takes place by ion exchange. Some say it takes place by a special method that is called Donan equilibrium. And some say that it takes place by the most important theory, which we can call as, which is mostly followed, which is most accepted theory, that is mass flow theory. This is the passive absorption, active absorption. In the second phase, or in this method, that is absorption, the ions are taken slowly into the inner space, and if from the outer space, that is from the cell wall or from the these intracellular spaces, the minerals are taken into the inner space through symplast, that is living cells, and which involves the expenditure of metabolic energy. This absorption of this taking of these minerals into the inner surface of the cells, this takes place by the living cells. This absorption through the living cells we call a symplast, that is through living cells, which involves the metabolic of energy. Here the uptake of mineral ions takes place against the concentration gradient. In passive absorption, uptake of minerals takes place towards the concentration gradient, that is from a region of higher concentration or to a region of lower concentration. From a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration without any expenditure of energy. But here in active absorption, it takes place against the concentration gradient, that is from a region of lower concentration to a region of, but this requires expenditure of metabolic energy, which comes from the respiring cells of the roots. Because root cells undergo respiration. With the help of that, as per energy is released, that energy helps in pumping these mineral ions even from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. And it is believed that this active transport, as we have seen, page transport may take place through diffusion, facilitated diffusion, ion exchange, Donan equilibrium, or mass flow. It is believed that this active transport takes place from carrier proteins present in the cell membrane called permeases. So cell membrane is the living part. It is believed that active transport takes place through some carrier proteins present in the cell membrane. These carrier proteins are called permeases. Any substance which is to be transported against ion concentration gradient must be combined with the carrier to form a carrier ion complex. Yani simply, an ion which is to be transported against a concentration, what is that did? It first combines with this carrier protein, that is permease, and forms a carrier ion complex. This complex then goes across the membrane and carries the ion to the other side, and sets free the ion to the other side, and is set free. When it is set free, when it carries the ion to the other side, it is set free and regains its normal shape and position, and now it is ready to combine with other ion for its transport. Kashir pait vanus, agar as misal ke taur par sodium andar aaj samun, yeli me andar zone, ish andar ishat be ishat free kara andrem side trava, patchinera be pani pushum beach imichi jai khali rosa. Now it is able to carry another sodium ion or another ion to form a complex with that ion. Path guys be movement be carry at under transport. It continuously this transport takes place. Now, the movement of ions is usually called as flux. And it is movement of ions, whether it takes place towards inner side or outside, because some ions move inward, some move outward. This movement of the ions is usually called as flux. This is called a flux. Now, this flux is of two types. The inward movement into the cells is called influx, and outward movement, that is from inner to the outside of the cell, that is outward movement, is called efflux. And this flux, The movement of ions we call as flux. This flux is of two types, influx and efflux. If movement of the ions takes place towards the cell, that is inward movement, it is called influx, and if it is outward movement, that is ions move from inner to the outer of the cell, then it is called efflux. This is all about the mechanism of absorption of mineral elements or nutrients. This is for today. Thank you. Salam.